Peace. Today we're going to address this video here by Senator Clyburn of South Carolina. There are certain key takeaways I would like people to be invested in analyzing when it comes to this man's oratory on Biden. I won't give up too much of it. I have seen the video. Obviously, it has inspired me to make my own video. But I want you to arrive at your own conclusions, but you will have my additional commentary to couple with his, because it's very important to me that we do not let these talking heads just speak and be the end of the discussion after they have placed their flimsy and flaccid period to the end of whatever garbage-based spiel they've given us to consume, politically speaking, or individually speaking. Clyburn seems to me to be a very disgusting kind of person, a human being, a vapid sellout, if you will. So we're going to address this video. I've laid my sentiments bare as far as where I'm going with this video. For those of you who wish to tune out because, you know, this is a man you support, or you don't necessarily support him, you support the Democratic Party as a whole blindly and traditionally, that is entirely up to you. This is not clickbait. I do not like this man as a human being or as a politician. Anybody that can sell out his constituency, his people, his own people, especially coming from South Carolina, like where the damn Civil War found its starting papers, or the Confederacy, should I say, found its starting papers. A man like this, who should have enough common sense to speak with common sense, but chooses not to, is a blight, not only politically, but to his own people. But let him build, and I'm going to give you my sentiments as it proceeds.
Oh my God! Yes! Yes! Yes!
Look at the coons.
I'm wall-to-wall raccoons.
Concern about how Biden is managing his reelection bid. This comes as President Biden is struggling to solidify support among black voters, including on that trip to South Carolina. Obviously, you were instrumental in Biden getting the Democratic nomination. Obviously, black voters were instrumental in President Biden getting, then Senator Biden, or then Vice President Biden, getting the nomination in 2020. How worried are you about black voters showing up for President Biden in November?
Now, before the devil speaks, and trust and believe, a lot of people misinterpret this, who do not understand when we call someone a white devil, or when we call someone black a devil or a black devil. The misinterpretation that's associated with that is that's because of their skin color. No, the reason why the Nation of Islam and then thereafter the Nation of Gods and Earths could so readily and reflexively call the white man the devil is because his deeds fit the definition. No matter where you found him, his deeds fit the definition, Anglo-Saxon, religious-based definition of what a devil is, and what a devil was, and what a devil remains. Black people, too, can fit that definition. And now, more often than not, when we see our youth in the street, they are fitting and abiding by that definition almost perfectly. And Senator Clyburn is a devil, not just because of his political leanings, but the incidental or should I say residual consequences of his political leanings. Because it's easy to see his siding with a policy on paper, but then when that policy is placed in application and the consequences of that policy is played out and people's lives are lost, people's fortunes are reduced to nothing, people's living conditions are reduced to that of poverty, then we see that, oh, well, only a devil could support such a thing.
This is your brain on drugs.
I joined it. And some people say, well, how could you join a person declared a war on drugs or someone like Ronald Reagan? Well, I joined with Nancy Reagan because she said, just say no.
Just say no so loud that everyone around you can hear.
We're talking about a general education that we're talking about. We're not talking about locking up people. We're talking about educating people. We're talking about prevention.
Only a devil could support such a group of people. When the policies that you support ultimately ends up with your own people, your own race, the history and future of your race of people being brought into question, and you side with the people who are bringing it into question, you can only be a devil. Because the people seeking to bring it into question themselves have classified themselves as devils through one means or mechanism or another. So when he comes behind that and doubles down on it as a supporter, be it silent or vociferous, this man has outed himself as a devil. And here this devil has been instructed 3 times where the interviewer, Jake Tapper, is trying to take him. He said, black voters. Black voters, black voters. His exact quote, this comes as President Biden is struggling to solidify support among the black voters. Obviously, black voters were instrumental in President Biden getting then Senator Biden or then Vice President Biden getting the nomination in 2020. How worried are you about black voters showing up for President Biden in November? 3 times he has set the stage for what this interview is supposed to be about, where he is supposed to go, Senator Clyburn is supposed to go. And let's listen to where Senator Clyburn, of course, takes us.
I'm not worried. I'm very concerned, and I have sat down with President Biden. I don't know. I saw those reports. I've also seen at least one report indicating that I have sat down with President Biden, and I did with him, and I've told him what my concerns are. I have no problem with the Biden administration and what it has done.
He has no problem. This is some telling language here, ladies and gentlemen. He has no problem with what the Biden administration has done, and therefore by contraindication, because in law as in politics, not doing a thing is equally as supportive of the thing to be done or not to be done. So by him not having a position vociferously about what Biden has not done is not tolling a party line. This is him siding on the side of those who have benignly neglected their most largest and loyal voting base in the African American or the Black American or the Black voting bloc, if you will. No problem whatsoever in disassociating himself from the consequences of not having a position, a stated position on these people's neglect of his community. The same community Jake Tapper has led him directly to speak to, and he has chosen to speak in nebulous, open-ended terms and prose and phraseologies.
My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall.
The MAGA wall. The MAGA wall. Black people do not necessarily vote predominantly Republican, and most certainly black people are not MAGA. He said black people. Why are we speaking about MAGA here, sir? He literally said 3 times as the lead up, black people. You're talking about the MAGA wall. So we have to understand in politics, it's not always what's said, it's also what is not said. And here his intentional obfuscation of the leading narrative that the interviewer tried to set for this particular discourse. His intentional disregard of that narrative shows and proves that he is consciously aware of what is being done and what is not being done for his community. And he is likewise consciously displaying an antipathy for the entire narrative. He doesn't want to speak specifically to his people because he has nothing of specificity to give to them, to lend to them, or abide by them. He has nothing specific. He has more of the same. And that's what you get when you deal with more of this lame.
In order to get to people exactly what this president has done. If you took the little simple thing as student loan debt relief, he promised to relieve student loan debt And he has done that.
Now, before we get to the student loan debt, I'd likewise like to point out Jake Tapper, because he, as a devil, doesn't escape my view either. Because again, in politics, even the extension of politics through media that we deal with through CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ONI, all these other places, it is not just what is said, it is what's not said. Here, Jake Tapper knew he led this man 3 times towards black voters. At no point in time has this man, Clyburn, Senator Clyburn, spoken to those black voters. And Jake Tapper says nothing. No interjections, no corrections, no redirections, no nothing. He sits there with a benevolent face, taking it all in because it was all scripted to begin with. When they want to talk about us, they use a black face to do it. And as long as the black face is there and complicit with the narrative or the lack of a narrative around this black topic or black issue, then everybody's good and everything is fair. And of course, look at Jake Tapper's face. It's a benign face. It's a benevolent face as he speaks to this political fraud and huckster and charlatan. But it's the narrative that is being told here. I spoke about black people here, and I spoke about it to a black person who is supposed to be representing black people in a highly segregated and gerrymandered district at the consent and will and blessing of the Republicans that he's supposed to be against. And what do you know? This black man didn't say anything. But we all know we put the smell of blackness in the air, right? We have, if you will, tainted the narrative with blackness. So nobody can say we're not speaking about black people, even though we're not saying a goddamn thing to or directly about black people.
But one part of his...
Let me pull back, and let me pull that back just a tad bit. Because also, let's talk about student loan debt. According to the United States Department of Education, Biden to date has forgiven $132 billion in student loan debt. I'm not dealing about who he forgave it from and whatever the case may be. That's irrelevant. Also, according to these same said people, and according to USA Today, the America in general is $1.77 trillion in debt when it comes to student loans. Americans, not America, Americans are $1.77 trillion in debt in pursuit of higher education. So in essence, Biden has forgiven 7.46% of a 100% student loan debt, which means he has done nothing of consequence. Nothing of consequence whatsoever. And it deals with selectivism and tokenism to arrive at a contrary conclusion.
Of his promise, he was not able to keep because 6 Republican attorneys general and the United States Supreme Court with 6-3 vote stopped him from doing so. But he sought another way, and he has forgiven $132 billion to 3.4 million people in student loan debt. But nobody writes about that. Nobody talks about that.
That's a lie. That is a lie. Everybody on the right, on the left wing of things has talked about that favorably to Biden's administration. And everybody on the right wing has spoken about that non-favorably to the Biden administration, but to allege with no tangible substantive proof other than your words as a sellout politician that nobody is speaking about it is literally alternative facts. The same alternative facts that they lambasted Trump's press secretary, Conway, lambasted her for saying alternative facts, for using that. To this day, that phrase, alternative facts, is synonymous with and literally inseparable from Conway. But here this man in Clyburn is dealing with alternative facts right in our face, and says it with no contradiction and no pushback from Jake Tapper, the alleged interviewer. because this is theater, political theater.
I'm still hearing from people as recent as yesterday that he did not keep his promise on student loan debt relief, and he has.
He has not. Biden promised across the board $10,000 in debt relief. He promised that. Period. You can allege that it would be difficult to implement that, and that's the reason why he backed away. But Biden's campaign promises have not translated at all to anything tangible. At all. You can talk about what he has done in relationship to the to get us to the $132 billion forgiven, but across the board forgiveness would have increased that number to something more meaningful. And that $1.77 trillion indebtedness that people who have sought the American dream have incurred upon themselves for that level of academic myopia, it would be a lot less in number. But instead, that is not where we are at. Now, what that number would be, I don't know what it would be. I know that it would be a lot more than $132 billion. And we wouldn't be in less than 10% of forgiveness when it comes to this particular issue.
80% of what he said he would do, he has done and is continuing to do it.
Well, that's relative, right? If he's speaking about 80% across the board of what he has alleged he would do for the American people when he was on the campaign trail, I am not here for that. I am more true to the conversational discourse, though, than Clyburn, because I know Jake Tapper was speaking about what was done directly and specifically for black people. Nowhere in Clyburn's response to Tapper has there been one mention of that, because if we were to mention that, we would be talking about 100% of nothing. Biden has done 0% of what he said he would do for black people. Nothing. When it comes to tangibles, tokenism with Ketanji Brown Jackson and all that other stuff, which we will eventually get to in this video, that's an entirely different thing, and it's filled with its own poisons. I am speaking about with specificity, as Jake Tapper 3 times in the spirit of Dr. Umar Johnson brought up 3 times. Black people, black voters, black people, black voters. Not once has Clyburn even so much as mentioned the name or even said the word black or black people. Not once.
And people don't focus on that. They only focus on that 20% affected by that court decision rather than what he did to get beyond the court decision. He's done the same.
Okay, and what has he done? There was other court decisions. Other court decisions at issue here. What about the court decision which said that Biden could not do anything for those black farmers that he promised? What about the congressional enactment which brought about the failure of the Voting Rights Act, the passing of the Voting Rights Act, and the contemporaneous failure, though incidental or afterwards, of the goddamn Justice and Policing Act? What was the additional measures, the maneuvers that Biden implemented to get around those things? Nothing. They went completely stale because the promise and the energy and the zeal was never there. The words underpinning the promise were spoken with distaste and disdain. So how did you anticipate the measures to be taken by the Biden administration to be anything else than those of disdain towards the people that he made these promises to? And you don't have to take my words for it. Like I said before, in politics, it is not just what is done, it is what is not done that is of importance. All of this stuff is theater. But even in theater, there can be key takeaways. There can be key takeaways. There can be something of tangibleness extended to those people who have participated in it. And here, what the key takeaway is for us is that Biden does not care about black people. That is not saying anything. Obama didn't care about black people. And if you think Trump does, you got another thing coming. None of these people care about black people, including Clyburn. Including Clyburn. This man is literally refusing to mention us at all in any meaningful way. He's talking about open-ended and nebulous things. You are losing your largest voting bloc, and you're still playing the game of benign neglect founded some 40, 50 plus years ago. Because you're stupid. You're stupid, and you're thinking the children of today and the men and women of today are those that were there at the dawn of the civil rights era. You are thinking that they are those who are there at the signing of the goddamn Brown versus Board of Education decision. No, these people are dying off and have died off. The ones who are replacing them now don't necessarily have that commitment to the Democratic Party because they are living in the world of materialism. And this world of materialistic things requires something of tangibleness to be given. And if there's nothing tangible and all I have is words, then the pursuit of the tangible becomes what's relevant. And because you guys can't show us how you pursued the tangibleness, you are losing us in mass. And instead of speaking to us directly, you are still playing these bullshit, open-ended, nebulous, benign, neglected, or neglectful games that are going to get your asses booted. If from no other place, I guarantee you from that presidential seat that you're currently occupying.
When it comes to the judiciary, he stood right across from Emmanuel Church and said, if given the opportunity, he would put an African-American woman on the Supreme Court. He has done that.
Okay. He speaks about, and then with this, he's speaking about Ketanji Brown Jackson's, now Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Here's the problem with Ketanji Brown Jackson's. The ABA Journal looked and reviewed over 25 cases that Ketanji Brown Jackson put her name to and was indeed within the majority in. And within those 25 cases, which were all racial bias cases, by the way, Ketanji Brown Jackson only ruled 3 times in favor of black defendants. 3 times. In one such case where she refused to rule against black defendants, it was 2,000 Lockheed Martin black employees who could definitively point to a racial and discriminatory policy that the government was affecting them with and by. Even the government in the Lockheed Martin case sided with the plaintiffs during the fact-finding process to arrive at the conclusion that this was a discriminatory practice targeting black people. And Ketanji Brown Jackson, even when the record was completely lopsided in one direction in favor towards these black defendants, she ruled against them. That's the Ketanji Brown Jackson he's speaking about. That's the one up, the leg up that we're supposed to all get behind and raise our torches in support for. And here it is, if given the opportunity to, whatever basis she can find to rely upon, she'll rule against her own people. She'll self-cannibalize the interest of her own people because she, of course, herself does not align with her people unless, of course, it is for political gain. If it is not for political gain, if it is not in that political vein of things, she does not and will not side with black people whatsoever.
They went even further and put a South Carolinian African-American woman on the second highest court of the land, a South Carolinian African-American woman on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. He is appointed.
We are not all from South Carolina. I don't know if this man is suffering from some flow of dementia or some form of dementia, but we are not all from South Carolina. And the last time I checked, America consists of over 50 states. 50 states. It is not the United States of South Carolina. So you pointing to the tokenism that means most to you because you yourself are from South Carolina, and therefore that needs further reiterations on your part. For those people that Jake Tapper has literally asked you to speak to, you putting this in front of us as though it's supposed to mean the world to us literally falls as flat and as flaccid as can possibly be.
More African-American women to the courts of appeal than all previous presidents combined.
I don't give a fuck if you put 16 million black women on these courts. If they are all in the make and imagery of Ketanji Brown Jackson, then you haven't put one black person on these courts of substance. Using these gender war bullshit, divide and conquer narratives. Oh, we put more black women. No, black people. Why does it have to be black women? Oh, because black women are underrepresented. But I thought that's when it suits your narrative. Because the last time I checked, I also thought you said black women outdo their male counterparts in spades. But that's when it suited your narrative, though. You were saying that. Because now you would say that what is supposed to mean something to us and to the collective because of what? Again? Black women are underrepresented in X, Y, and Z. Man, shut the fuck up. Because you can't have it both ways. And you can pull whatever hairs you want to pull when it comes to this particular subject matter. But if every last female you put on these federal judiciaries are in the same make and model as that of Ketanji Brown Jackson, then you have put nobody of substance to the black community on these motherfucking courts at all.
And that is a fact. And if you go through...
And that is a fact.
Each one of his pieces of legislation. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, sir, we're not talking about every piece of his legislation. We are talking about black people. What has he done specifically for black people? So if you want to bring up the Inflation Reduction Act and try to somehow nebulously tie that to us under this benign, neglectful rubric that both you and Jake Tapper are operating under, let's just break it down. You say, and it is known that black people are the most disenfranchised group of people in this country. Black people per capita literally make pennies on the dollar to what any other white household and now Hispanic household almost makes in this country. Pennies on the dollar. So you talking about rising tides lifts all boat. So here we have these mansions and yachts being lifted, and over here you got this tugboat and raft being lifted, and somehow you are alleging that this is supposed to mean something of substance when these people who are having a good time on this yacht could literally throw the trash off of their boat and sink ours. And you have the audacity to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, inflate these nuts and put them in your mouth, motherfucker.
He has reduced the cost of medical care. Cap insulin at 35.
Reducing the cost of medical care for black people in America while black people in America are disparately treated in the medical field, period, means absolutely nothing to us. So I wouldn't care if it costs $1 million for us to get something done in this country, as long as it was done fairly. As long as I didn't have to worry about going into the same hospital that this white person went into, and then he come out whole, but I come out with half a fucking leg, half a limb, and the only thing that I was doing is going in there to get my fucking eyes checked. We're not talking to each other. You're talking past us.
Dollars a month. I know what insulin was costing a month. My late wife died from diabetes.
Again, look at Jake Tapper, dog, shaking his head like, yeah, keep going, nigga. Keep going, nigga. You're one of the good niggas. Like, listen, Senator Clyburn's wife is not every black person's wife in this country. You can try to humanize the situation to try to draw on the heartstrings and maybe infect the narrative with a degree of empathy for you and possibly your declining mental health. But the fact of the matter is, that is your situation. So I hear you, but you still aren't saying a motherfucking thing worthy enough to listen to.
$800 a month she was paying for insulin. So this president is keeping his promises, but people keep focusing on the one or two things he did not get accomplished.
The one or two things. So again, he's talking about the one or two things. So let's deal with his reductionist logic. And let's just jump into that one or two. Just one of those things were good enough to tear your whole fucking country to pieces and turn the entire sentiment of the globe against this fucking country. Just one of them. The Justice and Policing Act that had you kneeling in kente cloths had your bitch ass kneeling in kente cloths, trying to appease to the black frustration here in this country. And now you have the audacity to try to minimize it and deal in reductionist logic. Oh, it's just one or two things. Just one or two things, and just one of them are good enough to take your entire country out by the goddamn knees. These people have no real, true, valuable interest invested in the American people, and especially the African American person, man, woman, and or indeed child. They have zero invested interest in our well-being. And the people that we put into office, because of no more of a reason than their hue and complexion and phenotype, they too have no invested interest in the well-being of this country. Because trust and believe, I know they have put it all on white supremacy. But a lot of these white supremacists aren't really white supremacists in the way that you think they are. You're not going to be able to win this. And by turning and converting the black narrative to something antithetical to your political interests, it will likewise gut your entire political apparatus. And both of you, both the Democrat and the Republicans, are having your coming to Jesus moment, because the Republicans have basked in the racist white vote, just like the Democrats have basked in the mal-educated and miseducated black vote. Both of those two things here in 2024 are coming to a head, and the consequence for you people playing with us for this long is going to be catastrophic. I don't care in which way you cut it. So keep fucking around until you find out, you dumbass old fucking sellout. But let's finish up with this cocksucker, man, so I can go to the gym.
Didn't do what we wanted to do with the John Lewis Voter Education and Advancement Act. But we are going to keep working until we get it done.
So that's the end of my little snippet of him. And as you can see, I'm long-winded because I get frustrated very easily by these devils. Now, you keep working at it. Okay, this reminds me of Malcolm X. This reminds me of when Malcolm X pointed out the fact very long ago in the 60s. In the 60s, pointed out the fact that the Democrats have absolutely no problem with stealing every bit of our political majority to their own ends. Our political voting majority to their ends. And then doing absolutely nothing for us until the absolute last second. And they use that last second political maneuvering to tell us as a voting bloc to come out and vote for them so they can finish up what they were doing.
The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump. A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you, because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race.
We've seen this gaffe. We've seen this gaffe with Biden. We've seen this gaffe with Clinton. We've seen it with Carter. We've seen it with Johnson. We see how you people maneuver when you think you've got our backs up against the walls. Oh, well, if you don't vote for us, DeSantis is going to take away. If DeSantis wins, and he'd win in a head-to-head against Biden, he would blow him out the water. So would Nikki Haley, though. Oh, if these people win, look what they're trying to do with your history, and look at what you're not doing with our history. Because again, as I said before, it's in politics, it's not always what's said that's supposed to be dispositive and supposed to bring clear-eyedness to a situation. It's also what's not said, intentionally not said, intentionally not done. Biden could easily get his Department of Education to start creating, to implement policies and regulations which mandated the teaching of African American studies. He hasn't. The Biden administration could easily do something with his Justice Department to bring these police to heel in this country. He hasn't. And it's not because he hasn't because there will be pushback. These are his departments. It hasn't because he doesn't want to. And now enough of us see that and are seeing that. And once we disassociate from the voting process when it comes to the Democrats, all of that lack of voting, that voting apathy will inure to the benefit of the opposing party. Just because of how this dynamic is set up. So then you'll get a Republican. And then when this Republican comes in and tries to implement these authoritarian policies, you're going to get a 2020 civil unrest again in this country. And then when this Republican tries to use authoritarian tactics to quell that, you are going to get the war that you've been asking for from the American public. And all your anarchists that you thought would be on your side because they were white nationalists, like the Boogaloo Boys, you would have thought they would have been on your side because they were white nationalists. You're going to see these people in the street tearing your government officers' asses to pieces. Whooping your motherfucking ass up and down the street. You know why? Because they may indeed be anti-black as a practice and as a reflex, but they are more so anti-government than anything else. The reason why they stockpile these weapons are because of their anti-governmental stances and belief systems. You are going to get your asses handed to you no matter how you shake it, no matter how you bake it, and no matter how you take it. All because of your benign neglect and antipathy towards your largest voting base, the African American. Peace.
Oh.